Hey guys, welcome back to another fly tying Tuesday with AvidMax. My name is Max and today we're going to be tying Higa's SOS. It's a great little nymph pattern. It's kind of an attractor, but it's like your standard Baetis pattern. It's got a lot of roots of the pheasant tail and every other Baetis pattern out there nowadays. So in the vise I got a 2488H in a size 14. I got a 2.5 mil tungsten bead from Firehole and get going. So I got some UTC ultra thread in the black and start laying that down on the shank here. Snip my tag. Flatten my thread out a little bit and I'm going to work down the bend. So I got the hook situated in here, just allowing me to tie a little flatter onto the bend, so that henback lays in there kind of how I want it. So henback feather, I'm going to select ones that are a little bit longer for like my tailing. It just makes it a little easier to work with. So I'm going to grab probably 8 to 10 fibers and try to keep them all aligned. It's tough to keep the tips aligned, but if you can try to do that, the fly's gonna look a little better. I don't know if the fish are gonna care, so I kind of select my little portion of feather here and I'll pull that off the stem and I'm gonna tie this down directly on top, trying to keep them all together. Make a couple loose wraps just so I can size it up. Slide them back down towards the bead a little bit. So I got about the length that I want, so I go a little bit longer with my thread there, just so there's more, a better base for the thread wraps to hold the material in there. So keep my thread nice and flat and then kind of keep that feather together, and I'll work all the way down to the bend, a little bit past the barb. Another wrap or two. And make sure they're all kind of together. So looking good. And before I do anything else, I'm going to grab some Brassie ultra wire. You could probably go with the small in this size 14, but I had Brassie on hand, so going silver in the Brassie, and I'm just going to tie that in on the side closest to me. And I just do this prior to snipping out any material so that I kind of keep an even base for building up the abdomen here. It's a lot easier to keep a good taper going when you still got some material in there. So once I kind of get where I'm going to stop, snip that out. Flatten out my thread again, and then I'll kind of build up abdomen a little bit smoother. So nice even taper, and stop my thread just about where I'm going to end with the wire. Now I'm just going to make nice even segmented wraps. And I usually get 3, 4 in here depending on hook size. Tie this a lot in like a 16 or an 18. It's just a good little Baetis pattern. It's got this little hint of red on top, which I don't know, can be a trigger point for a lot of fish, specifically trout. So I got my wraps in there nice and even, and I'll helicopter out my wire, flatten my thread out again, and build just a little bit of a thread base so when I tie in my material it'll be even. So got that in there. I'm going to take a piece of Flashabou in the red. You can use a lot of other stuff. You could use just like one piece of Magnum. So how I do this, just to ensure that I kind of have the amount that I want in there, With this smaller Flashabou, I'll just split it on my thread and grab both strands of it and tie that down directly on top of the shank. Keep them pulled back together, not adding too much pressure, don't want to stretch it out, and work back right to my wire there. So you put a little too much pressure, it'll curl like that on you, so try to avoid pulling too hard. So I'll kind of pull that back. And then I'm going to go for some Midge flash. So it's just like crystal flash, this one's just solid black. It's a Wapsi product, pretty cool stuff. Use it for legs or wings on a lot of different things. So got about six pieces of the Midge flash here. So just like I would be using fluorofiber or something, I'm going to tie this directly on top and work that all the way back to the wire here. And make sure those are situated on top. Snip off Midge flash. And then I'm going to grab just a little tiny clump of the Superfine in the black. You could use other dubbings for this. You know, the Ice Dub Black is another good one, or the Ultraviolet Black. But this is just some Superfine, so I'll just make a nice little noodle on here. Slide that up, make sure it's even. And I'm just going to build a little thorax. And keeping it fairly slim. Got that in there. And now I'm going to take my Midge flash, fold it over the top, make one wrap, make sure they're sitting right on top, add a little tension. Now I'm going to part them, and I got 3 on each side. So much like using the fluorofiber, just going to pinch them against my vise here, and this kind of ensures they're going to lay back the way I want them to. So I'll work down just a little bit, build up a little bit of bulk to make our collar. So now both of them are going to stay off to the side, and got my 2 pieces of the Flashabou, and that's going to come right over the top and right in the middle of our wing case here, thorax. Make one in front, and got a little collar built up, and then I can snip or do my whip finish, and then I'll snip out my tag here. So I'm going to trim out the Flashabou, and I'm going to still leave the Midge flash long so that my UV doesn't get caught up in the legs. So I can situate them, make sure that they're going the direction I want, just kind of adjust them in there. So now I got that little strand of the red on top, a little hot spot, and some UV thick from Loon. And spread that right on top. Make sure it's even for aesthetic purposes. And I like, using the UV on the nymphs. It just holds everything together. I feel like you get a little bit more life out of the flies. Kind of gives a little more shimmer to the wing case, especially if you use a flashback. Hit this with the UV, and it kind of makes that red pop a little more. So I'm going to trim about the length of the thorax, my legs. There's one side, flip it over, get the other side. And there you have it, Higa's SOS, tungsten bead. It's It's a good dropper fly. If you've never tried it, give it a shot.